If you all thought that the Aston Martin was a great supercar, you would be thinking of something far more different. What will happen if you drive over 88 miles per hour and then you just realize something else? You are now stuck in 2001 where everything looked a bit different. There were no smartphones in that era. All you could see is people using keypad phones, and there was no Wi Fi back then. And what this car ever told you that the secret was far more stranger than you might think. This is the DeLorean, one of the cars that made the 80s feel like a cult classic icon. So what exactly is the DeLorean? The DeLorean, aka the DeLorean DMC 12, was a electric 1980s supercar that was made by John DeLorean. Unfortunately, since 1983 came out, DeLorean DMC's company has failed recently for almost 45 years. But one movie set the stage to make DeLorean's history feel different, and that was the 1985 Robert Zemeckis film Back to the Future. So what did Back to the Future do with the DeLorean like this? Well, it's simple. Make DeLorean good again, because whatever happened to the DeLorean next is certainly not the kind of future that DeLorean depicted. In fact, DeLorean had somehow failed for the past few years for going bankrupt, and Back to the Future was the only movie that made DeLorean's future altered. But what will happen if you disobey the consequences of time traveling in a car as good as this? Well, it's simple. You would be bankrupting the whole timeline, and everything around you comes with a cost. And that cost would be paying the ultimate price for alternating your future, past, and present. The consequences for DMC's creation of the DeLorean soon became an alternating disaster. When 1984 was about to give up on DMC, 1985's Back to the Future told you something different. The fate of the DeLorean now rests in the hands of a film that started off with a 1980s teenager played by you know who. The teenager who was voiced by Marty McFly was none other than, you know, the whole great damn thing. The whole portrayal of Back to the Future's DeLorean was something far more different. If Back to the Future never existed, then it is clear that DeLorean's fate would later die in the late 1980s. But when Back to the Future happened, that was something far different. Many people assumed to the worst and thought of what would happen if DeLorean's future became different. What if it was part of Back to the Future? And yes, it is. The DMC brand was later saved by the 1985 Robert Zemeckis and Steven Spielberg classic comedy Back to the Future, featuring Christopher Lloyd and Michael J. Fox as Marty McFly. But then you just realize the whole negative side of Back to the Future. If Back to the Future really succeeded for a positivity around the public, then the oil crisis would have began in 1989, where cars slowly die out of coolness and soon became boring and flat. No one really cares about these kinds of cars anymore, and guess what? The DeLorean, that was the biggest flex that soon became the consequential impact of time travel. The consequent reminder of Back to the Future doesn't just come from bankruptcy, it also became part of reality. Because when 1980s cars of coolness became cool, they suddenly become less cool and die out immediately in a future that soon costs fuel emissions and economic value downfalls. And guess what? DMC was the ultimate target for the economical crisis to begin with. And 1981 was not going well for DMC. And soon enough, DMC finally disappeared from the lineup between 1983 and 1984, just 2 years before Back to the Future was ever filmed on camera. The whole painful and regretful actions of DMC was due to bankruptcy and reality blending in. And when time travel really happened in 1985, that was something far worse. Not only did DMC alternate its fate, but it also caused controversial issues with the company. This later becomes a downfall in the creation of the said vehicle for the time machine. Originally, Back to the Future was supposed to have a fridge as a time machine, but the alternate idea soon became this thing, a DMC DeLorean, a 1980s electronic supercar powered by batteries instead of carburetors. But then the whole damn thing just makes no sense at all. 1980s teenagers were basically offended by how 1980s supercars were portrayed as time machines. Although this is likely true because most of us car enthusiasts really love how vehicles portray themselves in movies and real life. And Back to the Future portrays the DeLorean as a great successor to that of anything really. The creativity and ingenuity of the DeLorean DMC-12 wasn't just a car, it became the reminder of the consequences of our actions of meddling with time and history itself. When evolution started crashing down on Earth, that's what many people realize about Back to the Future. It's not just about time travel or comedy, it's a scientific consequence that negatively affects how past, present, and future mingle different sides and play different roles. And when time gets mingled, you just realize something. It's far too late to ever regret action. And when that action becomes personal, there's no turning back for it. So the morality of creating the DMC DeLorean was not just a different fact, it was a negative impact that soon became the negativity of our actions. And when those negative actions become personal, there are multiple consequences that could ever happen. And canceling the DMC company was a good choice because what would happen if DMC stayed all together? Well, the timeline soon become broken. And when it gets broken, there's a set of rules that you just can't change. Never mess with history and evolution. If evolution's rule gets broken, there's a simple chance that you might end up alternating another person's fate and their future, but also the past itself. The negative consequences of making a car a time traveling machine for a 1985 science fiction movie became the ultimate price to pay for the kind of consequences for a 1980s teenager played by Michael J. Fox became the answer to what would happen if we alternate our timelines and futures, including those around us. Thank you for watching. Make sure that you go comment, like, and subscribe. I'll see you all next time.